what does it really mean to be prone? Find out this time on Conditions D&D. Though given to an abundance of different enemies and allies for this option to make an enemy prone, it often is glanced over. Alright, I can stand up using half my movement, and now I'm back up again. But there is a lot more than just that that's being overlooked. Now, first off, let me talk about the definition of the prone condition. While prone, your only movement option is to crawl, which means basically difficult terrain where you only move half your movement speed as your movement. In addition, you could end this condition, of course, by standing up, which costs half your movement unless you would have ability that would add an exception to this. Now, what's interesting is while prone, attacks within 5 feet of you have advantage, but otherwise have a disadvantage, which means all the ranged attacks would have disadvantage on a prone target. This makes it useful not just against enemies, but useful for allies if your main enemy is ranged. By making yourself prone, you can make those ranged attacks have disadvantage, and therefore any advantage the enemies might have, you might be able to not reach them normally, or there might not be cover as an option. Drop prone. This may force them to come in close for melee options, destroying their edge, or just remove their edge in the first place. Now, interestingly enough, is that, of course, if an enemy has a reach weapon, and your only movement speed would get you in a place where you're out of reach normally, but you're in reach of their reach weapon. Of course, this is pretty niche. You could fall prone because technically, though they can attack a target up to 10 feet away, unless they're 5 feet away from you, they're going to have disadvantage. So that is a very niche but interesting application for prone, going as rules is written. Now, an interesting application is while prone, there is nothing stopping you from grappling them. You wouldn't have advantage as this is not an attack roll technically, but it does prevent them from getting up as their movement is restricted, and they would have to break away from this and therefore still be prone. The DM, of course, could say that you are, offering cover, and there prevents maybe others from attacking, getting that same advantage, but it still is an interesting application that allows you to look at prone in a more creative light. Additionally, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's also nothing stopping you from, if you are grappling a target, from falling prone. Now then you could simply release the grapple and get up again. This is one way, if you don't have an option to get your enemy prone, to get them prone, if it is that advantageous for melee attackers in combat such, to make them such. Now, it is very advantageous to know that attacking a prone target has a disadvantage if they are more than 5 feet away, because if not, your DM could definitely take advantage of this. But if they don't know the rules, so can you. Again, of course, there is a big movement aspect to the prone condition, as they would either spend half their movement crawling instead of their full movement, or half their movement would be used to get up. Either way, this restricts their movement, and say you're using something like Sickening Radiance, where after exhaustion they've already lost even more movement, the prone condition could prevent them from moving even more, say to keep them away from a caster, from escaping if you want information, or other ways, or keep them within the area of effect. There are many really interesting applications when movement is involved, and additionally, more movement in combat does bring to more exciting combat and strategic combat than just standing there and slashing. Now, when I talk about pushing and shoving a bit more in their own video, I'll go into this more, but you can push a creature either 5 feet away from you or prone. And this is a special attack made, which means that if you have extra attack, that's just one of your attacks. Additionally, if you take the Shield Master feat, if you attack as an action, as a bonus action, you can push the creature, which means you don't have to give up your entire turn to shove the creature. Again, grappling is another way you can get them down by falling prone yourself if you have that extra movement. So there are a lot of interesting uses, and if you want DMs to encourage making the enemies prone or doing things with the prone condition, you can always make it feel a little better. If maybe overall seems sketchy, grappling and then falling prone especially could seem like something you might not be able to do, but I would allow it, as it's a creative implementation of using the prone condition, as well as making the player feel really good they did it. There's, making an enemy prone isn't normally that damning. That's why it's one of the most common conditions because of this, but it makes things really interesting. The Wild Mount campaign setting even released a cantrip which allows you to deal 1d4 damage to creature and make them fall prone, which is now a really unique way to make an enemy prone while also dealing damage. So there are lots of untapped potential for the prone condition for both players and enemies. And even your enemies could maybe fall prone to avoid ranged attacks if your players are having a bit too easy time in combat. Either way, there is a lot of uses for the prone condition that maybe, hopefully, this video could help reveal just how useful it can be to be prone or make someone else prone. Thanks for watching. If I messed up on any of the rules, or if you have any prone stories that maybe could encourage other players, please feel free to share them or let me know. Thank you for watching the conditions in DnD. Additionally, say your player does have the Shield Master feat, as a DM, maybe you're okay with allowing them to take the push as a bonus action before they take the attack action, as long as they declare it. Again, this may vary for different DMs, but I certainly think it's a valid option. So, yes.